Everybody, welcome to helpyourmath.com. Today we're going to be solving some equations by factoring. And we've already gone through some examples where we've used factoring to simplify things. One method we used was the GCF method. Given an expression like this, we know that we can simplify this a bit further by finding common factors and factoring them out. But what happens if we don't have just an expression, but we have an equation? What if we want to solve for what this variable is? Set this equal to 0. Well, it turns out we can do the exact same thing that we were doing before. We'll start by simplifying this, pulling out our common factors. And now we have something that we can use to solve for our missing variables. Now to do this, we'll use the idea that anything times 0 is equal to 0. So we use that to essentially break this apart into, instead of solving one equation, we're solving two equations, because we're saying that anything times 0 is equal to 0. We have a 0 here, and that means that anything here times 0 could be equal to 0. So it could be that a minus 1 is equal to 0, or it could be that a is equal to 0. So now that we have our two equations set up, I'm just simply solving for a. In this case, we'll add 1 to both sides. We'll get that a is equal to 1, or, and this one's just solved for us. Just bring this down. We say that a could also be equal to 0. Now, an important thing to note here is you may be tempted to say, well, why can't I just divide this whole thing by a? You know, if the exponent, this up here, is what's making this so difficult to solve for a, why can't I just divide everything by a? A minus 1 equals to 0. A equals 1. You know, that's what I have here. Well, the problem with this is we don't actually know what a is. We don't know what we're dividing by, and we don't know if there are multiple answers that we're missing by doing this. This is giving us one answer. That's great, but it's not giving us all the answers. So this is not the way you want to approach one of these problems. When you're given something like this, your first step should always be to factor, and then using this idea that anything times 0 is equal to 0, you break this new equation up into simple equations and you solve for those variables individually.